Assalamu alaikum students. Today I'm going to teach you executive summary and abstract. Uh, the class is technical and business writing. Today is lecture number 12 and my name is Muhammad Usman Ali. Let's start the lecture for today. Um, let's start with the executive summary. An executive summary is a short document that details the results of a laboratory experiment. It may appear as a standalone document or included within a longer report. The reader, the reader should be able to quickly read it and obtain important results and conclusions from an experiment. Individual section of an executive summary are not divided by subheadings. As a standalone document, the length of text should not exceed one page with an additional 1 to 2 pages for figures or tables. When included as part of a lab report, the summary should not include or reference tables and figures. It is acceptable to repeat information from the rest of the lab report. However, the summary should not include any new information or conclusions that are not already stated elsewhere. For this reason, it is advisable to write an executive summary last after all other sections of the document are drafted. So here is a little bit detail about the executive summary, like background and purposes, result and analysis, conclusion and recommendations, and appendices. So let's discuss it one by one. First comes the background and purpose. The background should be a paragraph that contains the goal of the lab and briefly explain what significance it has to the scientific community. The point number one is state the objective of the lab exercise. Though this is provided in the lab documents, the purpose should be restated in your own words. The purpose should be specific and focus on the scientific principles. Examples: in this lab, four types of beams were tested to determine which has the greatest strength to weight ratio, grams and pounds. In a sentence or two, explain explain why the purpose of the lab is important to the scientific community. What is the motivation behind performing this lab? Example: ABC company wants to determine whether lighting is better in parallel or in series. The results of the lab will allow the team to make a recommendation for result and analysis. In 1 to 2 paragraphs, summarize the most important results and trends in the experiment. In a standalone document, figure and table in an appendix can be referenced to support your analysis. Okay, let's discuss these points. State results and content independent of your own influence. These observations should be relevant to the purpose of the lab experiment. Describe trends and implications by referencing your results. What can you infer from your data? Example: increasing wind speeds cause the turbine to produce more power. To maximize power production, turbines should be placed where they will receive the strongest wind. Briefly describe possible errors and discuss potential solutions. Conclusion and recommendation. In final paragraph, should emphasize the conclusions drawn from the result and how the result can be used in your scenario. Let's discuss these 2 points. State your conclusions based on the result of the lab. Number two is to provide recommendations for the scenario posed at the beginning of the lab procedures. based on the lab results. An example is based on the result of the procedure. The team recommends a tapered channel with a truth check valve that leads to an oval detection valve. Appendices. Create a new appendices for each category of content. Title. Each appendices using the format appendices A. Descriptive title. For example, an executive summary might contain the appendices A. Experimental data. Appendix B. Equations and sample calculations. Arrange appendices in the order in which they are referred within your summary. Every appendix must be referenced within the document. Start figure and table labels at one in each appendix. Each numeric label will be preceded by the appendix letter and a period with no space. For example, A.1 or B.3. Labels should be formatted as described in using graphics and visual effectively. Organize and format each appendices neatly. Appendices should not be storage for messy or extraneous information. Place any necessary figures and tables in the appendix. Executive summary should not have figures and tables within the summary. It is acceptable to choose the most important content to limit the figures and tables to 1 to 2 pages. So this is all about the executive summary. Let's move towards the abstract. Many technical reports include a short abstract at the beginning of the report. Abstracts are typically written to enable the reader to determine if they want to read the report in its entirety. They are extremely concise version of the full report. They do not present any information that is not included in the full report. An abstract is written in introduction, body, conclusion, paragraph, form, and should not include subsection. Abstracts should not include any image, graphs, table, or sample calculation. The parts of an abstract are related to their uh, counterparts in the full lab report, but are abbreviated versions. So let's have a look on the abstract and what are the key points of the abstract. Number one is the introduction. Second one is the experimental methodology. Third is the results, and then conclusion. If we will discuss the introduction briefly describe the goals of the lab and explain its significance to the scientific community. Uh, Here are two things that I have to discuss here. The number one is state the objective of the lab exercise. Though this is provided in the lab documents, the purpose should be restated in your own words. The purpose should be specific and focus on specific principles. Example, in this lab, four types of beam were tested to determine which has the greatest strength to weight ratio, grams pound. In a sentence or two, explain why the purpose of the lab is important to the uh, scientific community. What is the motivation behind performing this lab? Example, ABC company wants to determine whether light is better in parallel or in series. The result of the lab will allow the team to make a recommendation for experimental methodology. An abstract will typically be ready by someone who is not familiar with the experiment. Mention the method used in your experiment. Include a brief description of the experiment. Example, the efficiency of each design was measured by retrieving data from the Arduino and analyzing the energy using in MATLAB. Discuss what data was collected and how you collected it. Do not discuss specific equipment unless it is unique and vital to the purpose of the experiment. So after this, we will have results, and in results, provide a summary of the result of the experiment in a few sentences. Present the final proceeded uh, uh, present the final process result and observation of the experiment. Example: a circular check wall with tapered channels leading to an ovular detection. Well required the smallest fluid sample to fill the detection level. State any possible source of error. Do not include or reference any raw data, calculation, graph, or table. So conclusion is the last part of the summary. Uh, Summarize the conclusions and recommendation from the experiment in 1 to 2 sentences. State the conclusions that can be drawn from the result of the experiment and connect these conclusions to the purpose as described in the introduction. Briefly describe possible solution to the limitation of the experiment and suggest any further study that may be meaningful. So this is all about executive summary and abstract. Hopefully, after watching this video, you will be able to write an executive summary and abstract by yourself. So please watch this video carefully. If you have any questions, you may ask in the comment sections. If you cannot, and then you can, then I will be answering you these questions in the coming class. Okay, students, take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi.